Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to On Life Health's webinar series presented in conjunction with Health Trust's Slice of Life program. I'm your host, your moderator, and your presenter, all rolled into one today. My name is Michael Detner. I've worked here at On Life Health for a little under 10 years now. Today's topic is wellness fads, separating fact from fiction. So I thought that might be kind of an interesting thing to look at, a little bit out of the ordinary for us here. Before we begin, most of you know this if you've been with us before, just a couple pointers about the webinar itself. This webinar is being conducted in a listen-only mode, and that means that you can hear me, but I cannot hear you. But don't worry, I'm not ignoring you. The last 10 to 15 minutes of this webinar have been set aside for questions and answers. And so anytime during the webinar that a question pops into your head or a comment happens to pop into your mind, feel free to open up the questions box in your control panel. It's near the bottom, I believe, and you can type your questions in there, and then when we finish, we will be able at that point to at least hopefully get to as many of those questions as possible. So I've got a little technical glitch here I need to fix very quickly. There we go. Anyway, so back to what I was saying. All right, don't show again. Sorry about that. One other thing, that there's a limited number of people who can actually attend the webinar, so some people won't get to see it. If you know of anyone who did not get to see the webinar, it is being recorded, and you can access the webinar, even if you want to watch it again for some reason, you can access the webinar probably in 2 or 3 hours once it's uploaded to the GoToWebinar system. And I believe you can do that using the link that was sent in the original invitation. So, with all that, let's go ahead and get started here. Here we go. All right. Well, what we're going to be discussing today, just a bit of an agenda, if you will. We're going to be talking obviously about healthcare fads, and one word that is used sort of in conjunction or simultaneously or alongside fads is trends, and I want to sort of separate those out a little bit, and we'll talk about the difference between a trend and a fad in just a couple of minutes. Then, partially for your knowledge base, I guess, and also maybe for your entertainment purposes, we're going to talk about some healthcare history and some trends and fads that have come and gone over the years, going way back in history. We'll talk about what I like to say, some well-intentioned but off-the-mark healthcare trends and fads, and some that maybe were not so well-intentioned and might have been kind of a way to rip people off, and we still see that. There are as many fads as I suppose there are stars in the sky, but we're going to talk about, when it comes to wellness, we're going to talk about 3 types of fads. Probably about 90% of healthcare fads that are out there, or wellness-related fads that are out there right now, are fad diets. They involve losing weight in a simple and easy manner. We'll talk about some kind of different and I think amusing fitness fads that have come and gone, and we'll also talk very briefly just about supplements. That's something that you can it just takes up more and more real estate in retail stores anymore. The supplement aisle is enormous, and it's a billions and billions of dollar business. And then we will wind things up with just some tips that I have for you on how to spot fads, how to avoid them, and maybe even how to take advantage of certain trends that might actually be good for you. So in other words, how to be a smarter healthcare consumer. So is it a fad or is it a trend? Like I said, those words get sort of interchanged sometimes, and I wanted to clear that up right away. So when you're looking at fads versus trend where wellness or healthcare is concerned, there are 3 categories that experts tell us that you need to look at to decide whether something is a trend or a fad. If we're going to say one thing is good and one thing is bad, very simplistically, trends tend to be good things. Fads tend to be not so good things. But the three categories that we're going to talk about is reason, lifespan, and scope. So let's think about a trend. If something comes along and it fulfills a function or it meets a practical need, it's probably going to be more in the category of a trend. On the other hand, if a new product comes along and it fulfills solely an emotional need, or it plays on emotions or insecurities, that's probably a fad, and that's not a good thing. The way that it plays off of our emotions is usually it has a lot to do with body image. A lot of us don't like the way we look, and we'd like to change that. That's an emotional response. Also, there's a certain emotional component to wanting to spend your money on something. Some people really, really get kind of a charge out of that. So as far as lifespan goes, a trend is something, it develops, it's a product or it's a service or it's an activity that develops over time. It usually starts out kind of quietly and grows and grows and grows, and it has staying power. There are certain trends in the field of health and wellness that have been around for hundreds of years. And generally, like I said, those are pretty good things, unlike a fad, which generally just suddenly shows up in infomercials. It's all about just out of the blue, there it is. People are buying it like crazy, and then as soon as it shows up, it just sort of disappears. That's a hallmark of a fad there. And I'm periodically going to be checking my question box here. It looks like someone did have a question. I want to make sure everything's working okay. Anti-inflammatory diet. We'll get to questions and answers. Very good question. We'll get to those in just a bit. Okay. When we're talking about scope, it's not mouthwash, it's the actual scope of the product. When a trend comes along, something that's generally useful, fulfills a practical need, it develops over time, it has staying power, it also can have multiple brands. There can be different types, different uses, different purposes for that same product, and that also contributes to its staying power. If it's really useful, and people have lots of choices with those things, they're going to stick with them. Unlike a fad, which usually just has one brand, it's very limited in the things that it does or claims to do, if it has any real practical use at all. And I thought of the best way to illustrate the difference between a trend and a fad is basically a backpack. A backpack, they weren't always around. They've been around for kind of a long time, but I know when I first went to college, I got a backpack. That's just what you used. You had to walk a long distance through campus. It was a great way to carry your books. They fulfill a function. They fulfill a practical need. I don't really see backpacks going away. As a matter of fact, if you go to Amazon or someplace like that and look up backpacks, there are thousands of different brands and different types, anything from carrying your books to carrying your camera equipment to your camping equipment. So backpacks, I think, are going to be around for a long time, and the scope of backpacks is very broad. You can get them for practically any purpose that you might need. Here's a great example. If you're my age or maybe older, you probably remember in, I believe, the mid to late 90s, these Beanie Babies came along. Okay, they do not really fulfill a function other than if you like looking at cute fuzzy things, I suppose that's something. They really sort of play on your emotions. And if you recall, back, I believe in the late 90s, suddenly everybody was collecting these because they were worth thousands and thousands of dollars. My mother had a closet full of these things, and she was gonna get rich. She never got rich. She just basically had a bunch of dusty Beanie Babies. They surged in popularity, and I don't even know if you can go out and buy them at a store anymore. I don't think they really even exist. They just went away. There was just one brand, very limited use, actually no use whatsoever, unless maybe a dog toy. I don't know. So I told you I would talk about some things in history that were sort of maybe well-intentioned but off the mark. And I kind of enjoyed looking at these things and studying these because, first of all, they're really, really interesting. And second, it's a good exercise to look at, was this particular thing a fad or was it a trend, using those three categories we talked about a second ago. So we're going to go way, way back in history. This is an old rendering of bloodletting. It was thought uh, it goes back about 3,000 years apparently, and it was thought back in ancient times that the body became ill, or illnesses occurred in the body because there were imbalances in various fluids inside the body called humors. There was blood, phlegm, I believe gall might have been one. But if those fluids got out of balance, illness occurred. There also might have been supernatural reasons, we don't know. But the theory was that if you rebalanced these by draining blood, because it was the easiest to access, then the patient would get better. This didn't go away a long time ago. It was still used well into the 19th century. As a matter of fact, George Washington, shortly before his death, they did a lot of bloodletting on him, and that might have actually contributed to his death. But that was used for thousands of years, and it was pretty much, they say it was used kind of for pretty much most ailments could be cured by bloodletting. We don't do that anymore. Was that a trend or was it a fad? It was very long lasting. It lasted thousands of years. It was a trend. Was it useful? Did it work? Probably not, but based on the science that we had then, it was well intentioned. So I think it was more of a trend. Sort of a similar thing here with mercury. Mercury was used actually into the 20th century for various medicinal purposes. It was used, I believe, in various preparations to treat yellow fever, and it was for a long time the treatment of choice for syphilis. Now we know now today that mercury is highly toxic, and it can cause all sorts of terrible things to happen, up to and including death. So thankfully we have better medications now, but again, it was a trend because it was there for a long time, and it was the best we had based on what little knowledge we had about various things like microorganisms at the time. This one, I sort of debated whether to include this because but it's so fascinating and maybe a little funny. I thought I'd throw it in. What you see on your screen there is actually I believe a early 19th century doctor's kit for performing tobacco smoke enemas. When Europeans came to the New World, they noticed that the Native Americans were using tobacco medicinally. And one way that they would use it would be through the use of, well, what's implied here, through an enema. So they decided to adopt some of the Native Americans' folk treatments and so forth. And so word of this particular treatment crossed the Atlantic Ocean, and it became very widely practiced for 100, maybe 200 years, especially in England, where medical assistants would actually use the procedure to treat half-drowned London citizens who had fallen into the Thames and were almost dead from drowning. They would apply this particular technique. The smoke was thought to warm the body from the inside out, and that's the opposite of being dead. If you're warm, you're not dead. And it also was thought to encourage respiration or coughing. And so for a long time, that was a treatment for people who were nearly drowned, and they also applied it to many other ailments. It fell out of favor for many different reasons, as I'm sure you can imagine. So we move a little bit more toward contemporary American society and cures and so forth. This is where things started to get a little bit dark, and people, even though science was progressing, there were people who really knew that they could make money off of people's insecurities and inconveniences. And this is where we sort of slid closer to the line dividing trends from fads. This particular product, Mrs. Winslow's Soothing Syrup, was not around for very long. This is an actual advertisement poster for Mrs. Winslow's Soothing Syrup from, I believe, 1887. It was advertised, and I love the old-time verbiage that they use in their advertisements, and I'm going to read an ad that actually existed for Mrs. Winslow's Soothing Syrup. For children teething, greatly facilitates the process of teething by softening the gums, reducing all inflammation, will allay all pain and spasmodic action, and it is sure to regulate the bowels. Depend on it, mothers. It will give rest to yourselves and relief and health to your infants. Well, there was a problem with this. It did have an effect on the children's bowels because opioids will do that. They cause constipation. This stuff was full of morphine. As a matter of fact, a teaspoonful of the syrup would have contained enough morphine to kill the average small child. It became known as this particular stuff before it was removed from the market. It became known as the baby killer. This was, like I said, things creeping into much more dangerous territory. Not going to belabor the point on this. I think this label speaks for itself. From around the same era, toothaches were a real problem, and actually it was very common practice into the 20th century for dentists to use cocaine topically to treat toothaches. It does have a numbing sensation. We don't do that anymore, and we certainly don't give cocaine to children who have toothaches. So, but I thought it was interesting. So when you get into like I said, we're moving down sort of to the other side of the spectrum here of the not so well intentioned and still off the mark scientifically things. I like this picture. Is sort of a caricature of what we used to call the traveling doctors and professors who had very fancy names, and they sold elixirs and things that would cure anything, and they did it off of a wagon with wheels because they didn't do anything that they claimed, and they needed to get out of town pretty quickly. That's why they didn't actually have a brick and mortar office. So this is actually an old ad for Clark Stanley's snake oil ointment. We used to call them snake oil salesmen because apparently in Asian medical tradition, the oil from certain snakes, actual snakes, is used to cure various ailments and so forth. And the word of that spread to the West, and people thought, great money-making opportunity, I'll sell snake oil. Apparently in Clark Stanley's snake oil liniment, there was nothing resembling anything from a snake at all. It was usually a lot of alcohol was involved in these things, but I love the way this ad looks and some of the claims. It's for frostbite, chilblains, I have no idea what that is, bruises, sore throats, bites of animals, insects, and reptiles. It's good for man and beast. It just goes on, and there was very little regulation. There was really no regulation on what you could actually claim that a medication or a product did, so they went way over the top with it and actually pretty much lied about it. So when we're talking about health and wellness fads, like I said, there are sort of three categories that we have time to talk about today, and I wanted to show you some of them and give you some of the history of some of these fads. And once again, these are fads. They kind of came and went and didn't really help people very much at all. So we're going to start with diet and weight loss. And again, most wellness-related fads are going to make you skinny and attractive and make you lose weight without doing anything, without lifting a finger. So this is one of my favorites. I ran across this the other day. I thought I've got to include this. So this is a book that was published in 1964. It sold 2.5 million copies in 13 languages. It's called The Drinking Man's Diet. It's pretty straightforward right there. Subtitled How to Lose Weight with a Minimum of Willpower, and at the bottom in parentheses, also recommended for ladies and teetotalers. What could be better? Well, it's considered to be sort of the granddaddy of the low-carb, high-protein diets that came along in the 90s, like things like the Atkins Diet and so forth. But I love the way that things were written about. So if you'll indulge me, I'm going to read a passage from the preface from the beginning of The Drinking Man's Diet. This is so good. Did you ever hear of a diet which was fun to follow? a diet that would let you eat, that would let you have 2 martinis before lunch and a thick steak generously spread with sauce béarnaise so that you could make your sale in a relaxed atmosphere and go back to the office without having to worry about having gained so much as an ounce. A diet that allows you to take out your favorite lady to a dinner of squab and broccoli with hollandaise sauce and Chateau Lafite, followed by an evening of rapture and champagne. Well, who wouldn't want all that, you know? Turns out this was not a terribly healthy way to eat. It did lead, eventually, they think that there may be some links between some of the high protein diets that are still being promoted today. There are, if you remember the Atkins diet, it really was kind of a phenomenon. A lot of people did it because a lot of people did lose weight if they eliminated carbs from their diet and replaced it with just more and more protein. There were problems associated with that. First of all, carbohydrates are what our body needs and uses for fuel. It's amazing the number of carbohydrates that are actually used up just by the brain itself. Our body needs carbohydrates to make the fuel that we need to live. So that was a problem. People didn't feel particularly well. Several health problems can result from these high protein, all meat diets. According to, I believe, Mayo Clinic, some high protein diets restrict carbs so much that they create nutritional deficiencies, specifically one of them being insufficient fiber. And you need fiber to keep your cholesterol in check. You need it to keep your digestive system healthy. We all know the benefits of fiber, of course. But fiber, when there's not enough of it, it can cause problems such as bad breath, headaches, and constipation because it's taking, your body's not able to get rid of the things that it needs to. Some high protein diets include foods such as a lot of red meat, full fat dairy products, and these things eventually, after a while, can increase your risk of heart disease. And a high protein diet may also worsen kidney function. If a person's kidneys are less than healthy, it can be really bad because it puts an extra strain on the kidneys, because the kidneys are what have to remove all of these waste products that come from digesting and metabolizing protein. It's very hard on the kidneys. So you do lose weight, but do you want to eat that way for the rest of your life, which may be significantly shortened? They don't call him the late Dr. Atkins for nothing. Sometime around the 1930s, apparently, this diet came up. I remember my grandmother every morning throughout the whole time of my life that I knew her, she ate a half a grapefruit every morning because she wanted to be thin. It was the grapefruit diet, and it's been around, like I said, since probably the 1930s. No one is quite sure who really thought it up, who originated it, or why, but the theory goes that grapefruit contains a special enzyme that burns fat. 2 words right there that are a big red flag: burns fat. That and increases metabolism. Those are words that are big red flags. We'll come to that later. No one's explained exactly how this enzyme works, but apparently, also we don't know if that enzyme works the same in lemons and oranges and other citrus fruits. But most of the grapefruit plans, that they are a diet. They call for eating a grapefruit sometimes with every meal. Usually it's prescriptive. It tells you what particular foods to eat at what time of day along with the grapefruits. So it gives you some very strict limitations on the food you eat in general. And it's also combined, most grapefruit diets are combined with a specific exercise program. So guess what? You're eating less and you're exercising more. I'm not convinced that the grapefruits have a whole lot to do with that, with the weight loss that results from this. And one other thing, there's a good number of medications, prescription medications, that specifically you're not supposed to eat grapefruits or grapefruit juice with, because it can hamper the absorption of certain medications. So it was just not a good idea. For years, there have been various liquid diets. There's a recent fad, and I'm not saying trend, it's a fad, is the bone broth diet. Do you know what bone broth is? It's stock. It's bones that have been boiled. It's soup. You know, you're not hearing as much about it. I think it's about to fade away. Although, you know, soup is delicious, it's not really any way to eat. There are water diets. I don't need to explain how incredibly bad for you that would be. Yes, you will lose weight. You will also lose nutrients. You will also lose fiber. You will also lose your health because, you know, there's a lot to be said for hydration, but it's not a good way to lose weight. Oh, and notice the tape measure tied around the model's waist here too. That's very enticing. Advertising's amazing in these things. Now this person is, well, she's clearly wearing a stethoscope around her neck and a white lab coat. She must know what she's talking about when she's pointing at this fruit, which will, I'm sure she's going to juice it. Juicing is it sort of comes and goes. The theory behind juicing your fruits and vegetables is that it extracts all of the nutrients and concentrates them so you don't have to eat all of these things, because chewing is difficult, I suppose. But you're drinking the nutrients in their purest form, and your body doesn't have to work hard to absorb them because they're already liquefied and so forth. Fruits and vegetables are good for you. We know this. Fruit juice, to a certain extent, is good for you, but when you juice fruits, vegetables, and especially fruits, the sugar content of that becomes very concentrated, and those fruit drinks that are supposed to cleanse you and detoxify you and all that, actually it can make it hard to lose weight because you're taking in a great deal of calories and sugar that way. The other thing that they talk about with juicing and various other liquid type things is detoxification. Well, I have a friend who just a couple weeks ago I invited to dinner, and she said, "Well, I'm on a cleanse right now." I'm like, "What is in you that needs cleansed?" You know, cleanse. It goes. The theory is that there are toxins that enter our body through the food we eat, through the air we breathe, the water we drink, and that's not entirely untrue. But when people want to make money out of it, and they're very skilled at advertising, they can make it sound scarier than it really is. And I was reading a publication from Harvard to prepare for this, and it had some fact versus fiction things. And if we were like in a big room together, all of us, then I think it would be a really good thing if we could like debate how true these things are. I'm going to check. I want to check my tech here. I think we're still okay. Sorry for the delay there. Is it true or false that environmental toxins can build up in the body, especially the intestines? It is a fact. It is true. Okay. Is it true that a detox diet is generally low in calories and can result in initial weight loss? Yes, it's true in some cases, unless you're drinking too much sugary juice. Okay. Is it true that according to Harvard, is it true that a detox diet is required to cleanse the intestines and the body of waste products and promote good health? That is not true. Okay. Is it true that research has confirmed the safety of prolonged juice fasts and detoxification diet? No, it is not. They can be actually unsafe. Here's the thing when it comes to toxins. Yes, our bodies do absorb toxins through various means, but our bodies are also equipped with two really, really good detoxifiers already built in, and that's our liver and our kidneys. Now, if we are poisoned somehow, it can damage the liver and kidneys, but generally speaking, the liver and the kidneys get rid of the toxins that life throws at us every day, and we generally do pretty well that way. There's no real solid scientific evidence that detoxing does anything other than perhaps change the color of your urine and the frequency of your bathroom habits and drains your wallet. So it's kind of a fad. Here. cursor problems. Here we go. Another trend, and this is not a real thing. I thought this picture was amusing, so I threw it in. It's there was a fad for a while about food combining diets, and that this is basically a diet where, according to Healthline, it refers to a way of eating in which certain types of foods are not eaten together. Proponents of food combining diets believe that improper combinations lead to disease and digestive distress. Now, there are probably certain foods that you should not eat at the same time, depending on your own health issues and so forth. But to generalize it to something like this, it really just doesn't pan out in the science. There is no evidence that practicing food combining offers any real benefits. As a matter of fact, science contradicts these principles. So this is also an oldie but a goodie, the cabbage soup diet. I'd be interested to see how many of you have heard of this. It's been popular for a while, for years. It's cabbage soup. You boil cabbage into this soup and you have to make gallons of it because you have to eat it for like a week or 2 weeks. You eat it nothing but cabbage soup for several days. Then you can add a little bit of other specific foods to it. You do lose weight on a cabbage soup diet. There are drawbacks though. Number one, if you've ever walked into someone's house when they're boiling cabbage, you don't want to stay very long. It doesn't smell very good. It can cause some intestinal distress. If you are adhering to this diet religiously, you might want to take the stairs. That's all I'm saying. The elevator might not be for you. You do lose weight because you're depriving your body of certain nutrients and so forth. But eventually, the idea is to not be on that diet anymore. Guess what happens when you go off that diet? The weight comes back, sometimes more than was there before, and it just seems incredibly unpleasant in general. I've never tried it. So I told you there are 3 types of fad: weight and diet fads. Then there are, these things are so much fun. There are fitness fads, okay? Who doesn't remember this? This was, Suzanne Somers made this famous. It was the Thigh Master. And there were infomercials everywhere. There were people just buying these things up like crazy. You can find them at many yard sales now. That's also a good indication if something was a fad. You'll probably find it at in a yard sale. But this thing came around, and if you think about the scope and the usefulness and those 3 parameters that we use to judge fads, I'm glad Suzanne had great thighs, but I don't really think this was quite that useful. Then it gets into some things that are ridiculous. I'm not sure if you're familiar with this. I finally had to go and find a commercial. I cut it down a little bit. It's not too long. A commercial for this. This is called the shake weight. And I want you to pay attention to a couple of things. I'm gonna go ahead and play the commercial now, and I'm gonna try to pause it also, which we'll see how that works. Here we go.
When you put on that sleeveless dress, what's the first thing that sticks out? Our arms are the problem area that we never seem to be able to find a solution for until now.
Now, if you'll notice there, when I said fads play on emotions, fads rely on emotions to do what they do. First of all, it was appealing to ladies. It immediately went to insecurity, body insecurity. Oh, what about this flab on my arm? What am I going to do about that? Okay. Also, I'm not sure if you noticed those clips of those ladies wobbling their arms were in black and white. It's an advertising trick. Let's go on, and you got to see how this. If you haven't seen this in action, you're going to love it.
Shake weight is the flab-busting breakthrough that trims your arms and shapes your shoulders at the same time. My arm.
It's in color now.
Oh my gosh, I can feel the definition already. That's a real workout. You just shake it back and forth. There's no motor, no batteries, and you get the results you want. It's the power of 240 muscle contractions per minute. In fact, if you had the shake weight in your hands right now, you'd feel the results before the end of this commercial. Now you can wear the dress styles you want.
So we went from a black and white, dismal looking sad women with flabby arms to models dancing around for some reason. So let's move on, shall we? This is something that came along about the same time. This was I had never seen this before I started putting this webinar together. This is called the body bow, and I you have to see it at work here.
You see this rotation? This is not muscle shaking. This is muscle contracting like 270 times per minute.
270.
And with a smile on her face, bless her heart.
Exactly. So I do want to show you that Bruce is actually on this video, so he'll be with you and working you through the Super 6 at that 5 easy payments of $11.79. How much does this weigh, and how long is this, Bruce?
It's 48 inches long,
okay.
4 feet long, and 1.5 pounds.
Okay, so it's kind of, all of us can use it because it's not heavy.
Everybody.
So you don't have to be scared of it at all. It's F09998, and we have over 400 of these spoken for already. But if you don't know where to start on a
there we go. I thought that looked nice.
Exercise plan. This is a great place to start, right?
It is a great place.
I don't think these things are available anymore, which tells us they were what? They were fads. One more. You just got to see this. This is something called the Hawaii chair, and this is, well, just watch.
Tamara, the Hawaii chair wasn't designed just for home. I mean, after all, for some of us, at least 40 hours of our week is spent sitting behind a desk at the office. So to see what office workers think of the Hawaii
She's
chair,
hands-free.
sent Erin Lee to work.
Hi, I'm Erin Lee with USA, and today we've brought the Hawaii chair to a very busy work environment. Let's get some first-time reactions. Oh my gosh, this is amazing.
That feels great on my abs.
I can really feel this working. Hawaii chair while answering phones, using the computer, balancing books, or filing paperwork. You can hardly call this work. With the Hawaii chair, it takes the work out of your workday.
It takes the work out of your workday. It's easy. The results are going to be miraculous and fast, and you're going to look like a fool at work, basically. So I hope you enjoyed that as much as I did, because actually I believe Ellen DeGeneres found this commercial a few years ago and actually played it on her show, and there are YouTube clips of the audience just bursting into laughter. But anyway, I would try it just for fun. So anyway, I wanted to talk briefly a little bit about, like I said, a lot of real estate inside drugstores and supermarkets is being taken up by supplements. These are just some examples, some images I found. You can actually buy a gummy bear cleanse. It's a daily shot of green juice in gummy bear form. Magic weight loss tablets, they're sort of everywhere. There's kind of a fad that I think might be dying down a little bit about male enhancement. I don't want to get into the specifics of that. Also, it's not just women who they prey on their insecurities. They prey on men's insecurities as well, like the Hulk muscle drops. Lord knows what's in it. What the experts say is that you don't know what you're getting. The FDA, the Food and Drug Administration, has to be very, very careful with pharmaceuticals, with prescription and over-the-counter medications that treat symptoms and treat diseases. They have to work. They have to be efficacious. They have to be free of side effects that are very, very serious. All medications have side effects. They have to be tested, and they have to contain what they say they contain. Right? The FDA doesn't look at supplements that way. They look at them in the same way that they look at foods. Now, if a food is tainted with something, they'll step in and deal with it. But generally speaking, you don't know what you're getting when you buy a supplement. Okay, you don't know how much of the supplement you're getting. You don't even know if the active ingredient is even in it. About 5 years ago, an organization I recall did some random testing of, I think, just vitamin pills of various brands from various stores, like CVS brand, Walgreens brand, target, and they put them through some very rigorous testing, and they found that almost none of them contained remotely the amount of the active ingredients that they said they did. Some of them did not. Some of them were made actually with bits of sawdust. And these were from major retailers. So with supplements, you never quite know what you're getting. Okay. Now, it brings up the question: should people take vitamins? I mean, I take a vitamin every day. I just do. I also eat a well-balanced diet. I don't want to take any chances. It's not going to hurt you to take a vitamin every day, according to the experts. If you have a particular condition where your body doesn't get enough vitamins, you probably should supplement. But it all boils down to that thing that I say every time we do a webinar together, all the time: talk to your doctor, or even better, more convenient at any rate, talk to a pharmacist. Pharmacists know medications very well, and they know supplements very well. But if you think you need to supplement, talk to your doctor about it. Many people don't get enough vitamin D, for instance. The older we get, the harder it is for our bodies to absorb certain B vitamins. But again, this is a decision that needs to be made with someone who's an expert in the field. Checking our time here. Okay, so facts or fad? Being a smart consumer. So many of these things center on weight loss. I wanted to actually include this quote from the Mayo Clinic. I even highlighted some of the words here. When it comes to losing weight, what we've always known still holds true. Your weight is a balancing act. It's all about calories. It's about calories in, calories out. If you consume more calories than your body gets rid of, it will turn into weight. It'll turn into fat. If you're getting rid of more calories, burning more calories than you're taking in, you will lose weight. Weight Watchers, get back to my grandmother. My grandmother used to go to Weight Watchers. They've kind of always had it right. It's about, they use points, right? But it's about how much calories you're taking in versus how much you're burning. Okay, so the Mayo Clinic says your weight is a balancing act, and calories are part of that equation. Weight loss comes down to burning more calories than you take in. You can do that by reducing extra calories from food and beverages, especially sugary beverages, just empty calories, and increasing the calories burned through physical activity. It's that simple. The shake weight, the Hawaii chair, the body bow, they're not going to do it unless you really change it, your own calorie intake versus calorie output. So when you're looking at weight loss, when perhaps doing a weight loss plan of some sort, there are some questions that you may want to ask yourself. Okay, first of all, does this weight loss program or device, does it include various foods from major food groups, particularly with a diet? Okay. Does it include fruits and vegetables and a good amount of fiber and protein and so forth? Does it include foods that you like and you would enjoy eating for a lifetime? Again, cabbage soup. No, I don't like it and I wouldn't want to eat it for a lifetime. If that's the case, you're not going to stick with it. Okay, and who would want to? Can you easily find these foods? There was a while where there several places where you would order your food and it would be delivered to your house, and in prepackaged things, and you would eat 3 meals a day of nothing but these little packets of little preparations of food. I knew a woman when I was in college. She had struggled with weight for a very long time. And I came home for winter break. She had lost a dramatic amount of weight. I mean, it was remarkable. And she had been using one of these prepackaged, pre-prepared food plans. That was December. When I came back home again in May for summer break, I had never seen her bigger. She couldn't really afford or stomach the food anymore. So can you find them and prepare them easily? Will you be able to eat your favorite foods, or better yet, all foods, in moderation? Does it fit your lifestyle and budget? Can you afford to have your meals delivered? will your social life allow that? Does it include proper amounts of nutrients and calories? Is this diet, is physical activity a regular part of the plan? Because that, again, you got to burn those calories off. So looking more generally at some tips as far as if you suspect something is a health fad, here's some things to think about. Is there a promise of a quick fix or cure? Red flag. Are there reasons to mistrust the person, organization, or company involved? Are they trying to sell something? That's a huge red flag. Are the authors or the developers or the inventors, are they qualified? Just because they wear a white coat and a stethoscope doesn't mean that they're a registered nutritionist or a doctor. Do the facts sound too good to be true? Too good to be true. That's 5 words that are probably the most 5 important words in this entire presentation. If it sounds too good to be true, you know. Does the information come from personal opinions rather than scientific evidence? Is content missing reviews or verifications by medical experts? And are the claims based on a single study that might draw the wrong conclusion? One red flag when people talk about, well, research proves that whatever the claim is, research actually is not designed to prove anything. The word prove when talking about research is a red flag right there. Research can suggest, but that's another little tip from me to you. So we're gonna go back to the backpack beanie baby test, okay? A trend fulfills a need. A fad fulfills emotions. A trend develops slowly and lasts for a long time for a reason. That's fads are a surge, basically. The scope of a trend has multiple uses, multiple variations, multiple functions and so forth. A fad just has the one thing. So if you find yourself questioning, is this something legitimate? Is this something that I might want to invest my money, my time, my effort in? Think about the Beanie Baby backpack test, okay? And finally, again, if it seems too good to be true, it probably is. And it's your health we're talking about. So we've all got to be really vigilant about that. So I said we would get to questions and answers, and so we will do that right now. I'm being mindful of the time as well. Let's see what you've sent me here. Where's my cursor? The anti-inflammatory diet. That's something that would be a good doctor question. Inflammation is a hot topic right now, but it's never really been explained, in my opinion, to the public about what inflammation really is. There's different ways to use it. If you burn your finger, you will have inflammation there. That's not exactly the same thing they're talking about. Only a dietitian, a nutritionist, or a doctor, or a medical expert can really determine whether or not, and will be up to the research on what will help with various inflammation. There are some supplements, turmeric, for instance, when combined with black pepper, there is some research that suggests it can reduce inflammation, but again, it's something you don't know what's in those capsules when you buy them. Probiotics, I'm glad somebody brought that up. Probiotics, I think, trend or fad, in my opinion, and if we were all in a room together, we could debate this. I think it is a trend. We've known for a long, long time that there are trillions of little critters living in and on us. Most of them are good. They're good for us, good bacteria. When we're talking about probiotics, we're talking about having the right balance of those little critters living generally inside of our intestinal walls. There's a great deal of research some fascinating research going on to determine exactly what types of probiotics might be good, what types might not be good, what they do. But they're so diverse. There are so many millions of different species. We don't really know that the particular probiotic in this product is what your particular gut needs. So the research is ongoing. It's looking very promising. We're learning tremendous things about the way the human body works, tremendous things about the connection, the actual physical connection between the gut and the brain, and how probiotics may affect your mental health. But the science is very new and we just don't know a whole lot about it yet. I think it's a trend in a good way. I don't think it's a fad, but that's just my opinion. Let's see, Joanne says, full fat yogurt more beneficial. Yogurt, my understanding, and I'm not a dietitian, my understanding is that yogurt is yogurt. If it's had the fat removed, the probiotics and the good little critters that live in yogurt are supposed to still be there. The thing with yogurt is it's become such a snack food, it tends to have more sugar than anything else in it. But like Greek yogurt, unflavored, unsweetened yogurt that you can mix your own fruit or whatever, and is usually best. If fat is an issue for you, I don't think there's a problem as far as the benefits of yogurt and the fat content, but you might want to, if you know a dietitian, or you want to maybe check with your doctor on that for sure. Lutein and antioxidants improve in maintaining eye health. I ran across a little bit of literature about improving eye health with various vitamin supplements and so forth. And as it stands right now, there's not a lot of, it's not looking very promising that that's a particularly good, valid assumption to make. So again, if it sounds too good to be true, you know, now there are certain things that can be beneficial for eye health, but generally they're things that you would find in food. And another, Jessica also asked about probiotics. I did talk about that. There was one thing that I kind of forgot to include in this, and it's become a part of me, basically. I would be interested in your opinions now that you know all about fads and trends. Are wearable devices that measure our steps and our sleep and our heart rate and all that, do you think they're a fad or a trend? I'm on the fence about it right now. I tend to think that they might be a trend, because if you go back before wearables and connected cell phones were invented, a long time ago we had the pedometer. It was a little device that you would hang in your belt loop, and it would roughly click away and measure the number of steps you took for the day. And so we know that walking is good for you. We know that measuring those steps can be very, very motivating. These do other things too. It's a watch. It tells me when I have a text message. It's kind of a cool watch to have. You know, I don't think they're going anywhere. I think that, and I was a skeptic. I've had this for maybe a month, and I'm getting probably 30% more steps in per day than I was before. So anyway, but I wanted it. But I finally, I just want to say thank you all for your attendance today, and our time is over. Of course, I want to give a huge shout out to Health Trust and the Slice of Life program here at On Life. We value this relationship so much. And this is the only company, this is the only client that we do this webinar series for. And everyone at Health Trust, including all of you, are very special people to us, and we appreciate your participation in this. So thank you for joining us. So the next quarterly webinar will be the 4th for 2018. Things are flying. I don't remember the topic, but it's going to be really good, and it'll be in about 3 months, the middle Wednesday of November, I believe. So you'll be watching your email for announcements for that. If you would like to view this again, or you know someone who missed it, there will be a recording available later today. I'm Michael Detner, and for On Life Health, I wish you good health, and thank you very much for joining us today.